There is a version of being loved that does not feel like being loved, that arrives without the warmth and the consistency and the open-hearted availability that love is supposed to carry. That presents itself instead as distance, as withdrawal, as the specific frustration of someone pulling away at exactly the moment when the connection between you deepens into something real. You have probably spent significant time trying to understand this, trying to locate the explanation in something you did or said, some calibration of yourself that was slightly wrong, and sent the person retreating into the defended version of themselves that appears most reliably at the moments you most need the opposite. This conversation is about the specific signs that an avoidant is scared to love you, not scared of you as a person, scared of the feeling itself, of its genuine size and what it means to have a feeling that large about someone specific. Understanding those signs gives you a more accurate picture of what is actually happening. But accuracy about their interior is not the same as a solution. And this conversation will hold both things honestly, what the signs mean about the genuine feeling underneath the behavior, and what they do and do not mean for your actual situation. The first sign that an avoidant is scared to love you is one that tends to be misread consistently and painfully, which is why it deserves careful examination first. They withdraw after the best moments between you, not after the difficult ones, not after conflict or misunderstanding, after the best ones, after the conversation that felt genuinely mutual and real, after the evening when something unguarded passed between you that neither of you quite had words for, after the moment of genuine recognition that felt like two people actually meeting each other. After those moments, they pull back, they become cooler, less present, they create the specific distance that the closeness seemed to have dissolved. From the outside, this looks like rejection. It feels like rejection. The logic of it seems to confirm the fear that the best moments are somehow too much, that genuine depth is unwelcome, that you reached too far. The psychology is different. The withdrawal after the best moment is the fear responding to evidence of genuine feeling. The depth of the connection demonstrated something about the size of the wanting. And the size of the wanting is, to the avoidance nervous system, the specific threat the defensive architecture was built to manage. The bigger the genuine feeling in the moment, the more urgent the fear response immediately after. The withdrawal is not about you. It is about the feeling and what the feeling means about vulnerability. This does not make the withdrawal acceptable. It makes it comprehensible. The comprehensibility changes the meaning without eliminating the impact. The second sign is the quality of their involuntary attention. Avoidants who are scared to love you cannot fully control where attention goes when they are not consciously managing it. And attention, unmanaged, goes to you, with a completeness and specificity different from their ordinary engagement. They remember things that casual investment does not produce. Small specific things mentioned once. The particular worry from weeks ago. The specific thing that matters to you that you only said in passing. This quality of remembering is the evidence of sustained involuntary attention. You do not carry that level of detail about people who do not genuinely matter to you. When they believe themselves unobserved, the quality of attention shifts. More complete, less curated, the specific look across a room that has a different quality from their ordinary engaged attention. This involuntary attention is one of the clearest available signals of genuine feeling operating below the level of managed presentation. The third sign is that conflict clusters around moments of increasing closeness and definition. The pattern of when difficulty appears has a structure. Fights and distance tend to arise when the relationship is moving toward more explicit commitment, more defined future, more genuine acknowledgement of what you actually are to each other. The moments when the implicit is becoming explicit tend to be followed by disruption. Sometimes the disruption is a fight about something minor. Sometimes it is a sudden surge of criticism or distance that feels disproportionate. The specific mechanism varies. The timing is consistent. This is the fear architecture finding exits at the specific moments when genuine closeness is approaching. The conflict provides legitimate feeling grounds for distance. The pulling back feels like a reasonable response to a real problem, rather than the fear-driven retreat from genuine intimacy that it actually is. Understanding this does not mean absorbing unfair treatment. It means the conflict is rarely primarily about what it appears to be about. The fourth sign is the pattern in their inconsistency. The inconsistency in avoidant behavior is not random. It has a specific learnable structure. When your investment increases visibly, their availability tends to decrease. When your investment genuinely shifts towards your own life, they tend to become warmer and more present. This is not deliberate strategy. It is the automatic output of a fear architecture responding to the specific stimuli it was conditioned to respond to. Increased emotional proximity activates the fear. Activated fear produces the fear. Reduced fear allows the warmth. The practical implication is not to perform disinterest as a tactic. Performance is detectable and produces only temporary disruption. The practical implication is that genuine engagement with your own life, real, not managed for effect, changes the dynamics conditions more fundamentally than any performed version can. The fifth sign is the specific moments of unguarded vulnerability that arrive briefly and close quickly. There are moments when the fear temporarily loses its grip, when conditions create enough safety that the defensive architecture relaxes briefly. In those moments, something comes through that the ordinary managed presentation does not contain. Something more honest, more raw, more recognizably the actual person beneath all the management. These moments are brief, they close quickly, the architecture reconstitutes. But in the window of their opening, what is visible is genuine. These are the moments that make the dynamic so difficult to walk away from, because they demonstrate that something real is present, that the depth you perceived was not imagined, that the full, undefended version of this person exists and is occasionally accessible. The brief quality of these moments is not evidence of their unreality. It is evidence of the fear's ongoing presence alongside the genuine feeling, both things simultaneously real. The sixth sign is the inability to fully leave and stay gone. Avoidants who genuinely feel nothing significant for someone can complete a clean departure, can withdraw and maintain the withdrawal without the withdrawal generating the pullback toward contact. The avoidant who keeps returning, who orbits after distance, who goes quiet and then reappears, who cannot seem to make the final clean exit, is demonstrating something involuntary about the depth of the attachment. The pattern of not quite leaving is not strategy. It is the genuine attachment fighting the defense. The real feeling refusing to fully cooperate with the architecture's agenda of manageable distance. This is meaningful information about the depth of the connection. It is not sufficient justification for accepting an indefinitely insufficient dynamic. The seventh sign is the jealousy that surfaces in response to the possibility of losing your attention. Genuine indifference does not produce the specific activated response to potential competition that avoidant jealousy produces. Someone who truly does not care significantly does not respond to the prospect of losing someone with a particular quality of engagement that genuine threatened attachment generates. The jealousy in avoidance who are scared to love you tends to arrive indirectly. A change in the quality of engagement when another person is mentioned, a sudden increased presence when your attention might be elsewhere. The specific, slightly heightened quality of someone whose investment is activated by threat in a way that ordinary circumstances do not activate it. This indirect jealousy is not healthy relational behavior, but it is honest evidence of genuine investment beneath the managed surface. Now the part that the understanding of these signs genuinely requires. The signs are real. They indicate genuine feeling and genuine fear of that feeling. Understanding them gives you an accurate picture of the avoidance interior. What they do not do is make the behavior acceptable or make the dynamic sustainable. Genuine fear of genuine love explains a pattern. It does not justify its ongoing impact on the person absorbing the pattern's output. The withdrawal after the best moments is understandable in its psychological origin. It is still a repeated, specific, costly experience for you. The inconsistency is the automatic output of conditioned fear. It is still producing chronic low-level activation in your nervous system. The inability to fully leave is the genuine attachment fighting the defense. It is still keeping you in a suspended state that prevents genuine grieving and genuine forward movement. The fear explains. The impact is also real. Both deserve honest acknowledgement simultaneously rather than one being used to cancel the other. There is a specific and important distinction that the understanding of these signs requires holding clearly. The signs demonstrate that the feeling is genuine, that the attachment exists, that the depth you perceived was not projection. They do not demonstrate that the avoidant currently has the capacity to love you adequately. The genuine feeling and the functional expression of the feeling are different things. Someone can have real, specific, significant feelings for you and be unable, in their current form, to express and sustain those feelings in a way that constitutes an adequate relationship for you. The fear being real does not mean it will be worked through. The genuine feeling being present does not mean the pattern will change. The moments of genuine depth and genuine openness do not mean those moments will become the daily texture of the relationship, rather than the intermittent exception to a consistent pattern of managed distance. What changes the pattern is not the presence of genuine feeling. Genuine feeling has been present throughout. What changes the pattern is the avoidant's own genuine, active, sustained engagement with understanding and interrupting the fear-driven responses. That engagement is entirely theirs, not producible by your patience, not encouraged into existence by your understanding, not generated by your sustained investment in the relationship. Their work, their decision, their genuine daily choosing of the open position over the defended one against the pull of deeply conditioned fear responses in the ordinary moments when nothing is dramatic and nothing is charged, and the choosing is just the quiet, unglamorous daily work of actually doing things differently. Something else deserves honest examination. The specific experience of loving someone who is scared to love you has its own particular costs that are worth naming rather than leaving as the unnamed background of everything else. The cost of being the person who shows up fully in a dynamic where showing up fully is not consistently reciprocated. The cost of the chronic uncertainty about where you stand. The cost of the specific loneliness of being in a relationship with someone and still being essentially alone with the truest things you are experiencing. The cost of the chronic low-level activation of navigating a relational environment that is genuinely unpredictable. These costs are real. They accumulate. They deposit specific things in you over time. The erosion of perceptual confidence, the pre-qualification of legitimate need, the gradual recalibration of what you expect from love. That requires specific, honest attention and specific, genuine work to address. Naming these costs is not ingratitude for the genuine moments or dismissal of the genuine feeling. It is the honest accounting of what the dynamic requires from the person who is not the one who is scared. Who is the one who keeps showing up, while the fear keeps determining whether the showing up is adequately met? What do you do with the honest picture of all of this? You hold what is true without using any single piece of it to override the others. The feeling is genuine. That is true. You were not wrong about the depth of what was between you. The fear is genuine. That is also true. The behavior that the fear produces is not indifference. It is the specific output of genuine feeling encountering genuine fear. The impact on you is real. That is equally true. The costs of absorbing a fear-driven pattern indefinitely are serious and cumulative, and not adequately compensated for by the genuine feeling that is producing the pattern. The change that the situation requires is the avoidance work, not yours. That is the final true thing, and it is the one that matters most for the honest assessment of your actual situation. You can understand all of this accurately, can see the genuine feeling and the genuine fear and the genuine impact and the specific nature of what change would require. And from that clear, honest, complete picture, make whatever decision your situation actually calls for. Not the decision fear produces. The decision that clear, honest, complete seeing produces. That is the one worth making. The feeling was real. You deserve a love that reaches you every day. Both true, neither cancels the other. What comes next is yours to determine from that honest ground. The honest ground is where everything that follows needs to be built. And building on honest ground means continuing the examination of what the signs of avoidant fear actually mean for the person who is living inside the dynamic. Not just understanding the psychology, but understanding what the psychology means for real, daily, consequential choices. The signs described throughout this conversation are genuine indicators of real feeling. They are also, taken together, the map of a specific kind of relational experience that has a characteristic cost structure. Understanding both the genuine feeling and the characteristic cost is what honest ground actually consists of. There is something specific about the experience of recognizing these signs in someone you love that deserves direct attention. Because the recognition itself is complicated. It arrives with a mixture of things that do not resolve cleanly into a single emotion or a single response. There is the relief of explanation, the specific, genuine relief of understanding that the withdrawal after the best moments was not rejection, that the inconsistency was not indifference, that the pattern was produced by fear rather than by the absence of genuine feeling. For someone who has been absorbing the pattern while simultaneously questioning whether the connection was ever real, the explanation that the fear was the cause rather than indifference is genuinely meaningful. It changes the story from one about your worth to one about their limitation. That change matters. There is also, alongside the relief, something more complicated. The recognition that understanding the fear does not change the experience of absorbing its behavioral output. That the explanation does not undo the specific costs of the pattern. That the genuine feeling underneath the withdrawal does not make the withdrawal less frequent, or less painful, or less cumulative in its effect on your sense of what to expect from love. And there is the specific particular difficulty of holding both of those things simultaneously. The relief of the explanation and the honest acknowledgement that the explanation does not resolve the practical problem of what to do with a connection where genuine feeling and inadequate expression coexist indefinitely. This difficulty is not a failure of understanding. It is the honest complexity of a genuinely complicated situation. The appropriate response to it is not the artificial resolution of one side winning, either the relief cancelling the acknowledgement of cost, or the acknowledgement of cost cancelling the genuine meaning of the connection. The appropriate response is holding the full picture without requiring it to simplify into something more manageable than it actually is. One of the most practically important things to understand about the signs of avoidant fear is what they do and do not predict about the future of the dynamic. The signs predict the past accurately. They explain what the pattern of behavior has been, and why it has had the structure it has had. They make the previously confusing comprehensible. What they do not predict is the future trajectory of the pattern. Whether the fear that produced the past behavior will be addressed, reduced, or genuinely worked through in ways that change the behavioral output is not determined by the presence of the signs. The signs tell you the fear is present and the feeling is genuine. They do not tell you whether the fear will be engaged with honestly or managed indefinitely. The distinction matters because the hopeful reading of the signs, the reading that says the genuine feeling means the change is coming, is not supported by the psychology more reliably than any other reading. Genuine feeling in the presence of unaddressed fear produces the same pattern indefinitely. The feeling being real is not the change. The work of addressing the fear is the change, and the work of addressing the fear is something that the signs themselves provide no information about. They indicate the fear's presence, not whether the fear will be genuinely engaged with. This is not pessimism. It is accuracy. The accurate picture includes the genuine feeling and the genuine fear, and the specific entirely open question of whether the fear will be addressed. All three pieces, not just the two that the hopeful reading prefers. The signs of avoidant fear also have something to say about what the avoidant themselves is experiencing that tends to get less attention than the experience of the person on the receiving end of the pattern. The avoidant who is scared to love you is not having a comfortable experience. The defensive architecture is not a pleasant place to live. The specific, ongoing, privately experienced cost of being someone whose genuine feelings are being managed by a fear system that prevents their adequate expression is its own form of suffering. Not suffering that justifies the impact of the pattern on you. Suffering that is real and worth understanding as part of the complete picture. The person who pulls away after the best moments is not indifferent to having pulled away, is not comfortable with the specific observable gap between who they genuinely are in the unguarded moments and who the fear-driven architecture produces in the ordinary ones, is carrying, in the private interior that the composed exterior consistently misrepresents, the specific discomfort of someone who can see the cost of the pattern and cannot straightforwardly stop paying it. This is not an argument for your indefinite patience. It is the honest acknowledgement that the dynamic is not serving either person adequately, that the avoidant sphere is not benefiting the avoidant, that the architecture that was built to protect against pain is producing its own specific variety of ongoing pain, that the person you care about is in their own specific way also limited by what the fear is doing to them. This understanding does not change what you need, does not change the minimum conditions for a livable relationship, does not make inadequate love adequate because the person providing it is also suffering from the limitation. What it does is complete the picture. The dynamic is not working for either person in it. The fear that is producing the pattern is not serving the avoidant any better than it is serving you. Both of you are being limited by something that neither of you chose, and only one of you can address. There is a specific practical question that people in dynamics with avoidance who are scared to love them face regularly, and that deserves honest engagement rather than the elevated language that can substitute for practical guidance. The question is how to respond to the signs when they appear. Not how to understand them in retrospect, how to actually respond in the moment when the withdrawal after the best moment is happening, when the pattern is running in real time, and you are in it. The honest answer is that there is no single correct response that applies to every instance. The response depends on too many specific situational factors. The state of the dynamic, what has already been named between you, what the specific instance consists of, what your own genuine state is in that moment, to be prescribable in general terms. What can be said about the quality of the response that tends to serve you best is this: the response that comes from your own genuine center, from your own genuine honest assessment of the moment, rather than from the specific fear of losing the connection or the specific hope of making the moment into more than it is, tends to be the most genuinely useful response available. Not because it is strategically optimal, because it is honest. And honest responses, in the context of a dynamic that has been running on managed uncertainty and partial visibility, have a different quality that is recognizable to everyone present. The response from your own genuine center might be the naming of what you notice, might be the quiet continuation of your own engagement without the pursuing that the architecture was expecting, might be the honest statement of your own experience without the framing of it as a problem requiring the avoidance immediate management, might be the genuine, unperformed choosing of your own life in the moment of the withdrawal, rather than the managed, effortful not pursuing that still has the avoidant as its primary orientation. The quality of coming from your own genuine center is what matters more than the specific content of the response. That quality is not producible through technique. It is the natural output of someone whose primary orientation is genuinely toward their own honest experience rather than toward the management of the dynamic's temperature. The longer-term question that the signs of avoidant fear eventually force is one that deserves honest naming rather than being kept at the level of implication. How long is genuine feeling, expressed through fear-driven patterns, worth absorbing as the terms of a connection? This is not a question with a universal answer. The honest answer is specific to your situation, your needs, your genuine assessment of whether the avoidant is actively and genuinely engaging with the work of addressing the fear, and what you can sustain without the sustaining itself becoming the primary damage. What can be said honestly is that the question deserves to be asked directly rather than deferred indefinitely. Deferring it, keeping the focus on understanding the psychology and the genuine feeling without bringing the same honesty to the question of what the psychology means for your actual daily life, is its own form of the managed uncertainty that the dynamic was always producing. Except this time, the uncertainty being managed is not about the avoidant's genuine feeling. It is about your own genuine assessment of the situation's sustainability. The genuine feeling is real, the fear is real, the impact on you is real. The work required for change is the avoidance, and is not currently guaranteed to be happening. All of these things are simultaneously true, and all of them are relevant to the honest question of what the situation actually calls for. Asking that question directly, from your own genuine center, with the full picture honestly held, is not the abandonment of the connection or the dismissal of the genuine feeling. It is the most self-respecting, most honest, most genuinely caring thing available. Caring for yourself with the same quality of honest attention you have been bringing to the understanding of someone else's fear, the science told you something true about them. The question of sustainability asks you to be equally honest about yourself. Both deserve the same quality of genuine, honest, clear-eyed attention. That is the honest ground. That is where the real assessment lives. And that assessment, made from genuine honesty rather than from hope or fear, is the one worth trusting. The honest ground requires one more honest thing to be said, and it is the thing this conversation has been approaching without quite arriving at, directly. The signs of avoidant fear are real. The genuine feeling underneath the pattern is real. The psychological explanation for the behavior is accurate and worth understanding. All of that is true, and the consistent focus on understanding the avoidant's interior, on what their fear means, what their genuine feeling is, what their withdrawal is really about, is worth examining honestly. Because it is possible to become so fluent in the psychology of someone else's interior that the fluency itself becomes a way of deferring the simpler, more personal, more directly relevant question, what do you actually need from a relationship to be genuinely okay? Not what is understandable given someone else's history. Not what is reasonable to expect from someone who is working against deep conditioning. Not what is available from someone who genuinely feels something but is scared of what they feel. What you actually, specifically, non-negotiably need in order to experience a relationship as genuinely nourishing rather than as something you are sustaining through your own effort while managing the chronic cost of its insufficiency. That question belongs to you. Not to the psychology of avoidant attachment, not to the compassionate framing of fear-driven behavior. To you, specifically, in the honest, direct, self-respecting way of someone who has been paying very close attention to someone else's interior and owes themselves the same quality of honest attention directed inward. The signs described throughout this conversation are real indicators of genuine feeling. They are also, held clearly, the description of a specific relational experience with a specific quality. The quality is intermittency. The genuine feeling surfaces in the unguarded moments and is managed back below the surface in the ordinary ones. The real person is present briefly, and the defended person is present consistently. The extraordinary connection of the best moments is the exception, and the managed distance of the ordinary days is the rule. That quality, intermittent extraordinary and consistent ordinary insufficiency, has a specific effect on the person experiencing it from the receiving end. The effect is not primarily the dramatic pain of the acute moments of withdrawal. It is the quieter, more cumulative, more seriously damaging effect of organizing your emotional life around the intermittent extraordinary, rather than building it on the consistent ordinary. The intermittent extraordinary is genuinely extraordinary. The unguarded moments, the genuine depth of the best interactions, the specific quality of connection when the fear is briefly offline, these are real and they matter, and the fact that they are intermittent does not make them less real. What they cannot do is substitute for the consistent ordinary that a genuinely functioning relationship is built on, the ordinary Tuesday presence, the repair that happens before the distance grows too large, the daily, unremarkable, uncharged evidence of being consistently chosen. These things are not substitutable by intermittent extraordinary. They are the different thing. The thing that builds rather than the thing that demonstrates potential. The honest question is whether the intermittent extraordinary is sufficient justification for the consistent ordinary insufficiency. Whether the genuine feeling, visible in the unguarded moments and the signs described throughout this conversation, is sufficient basis for a life built around waiting for those moments while absorbing the ordinary day's managed distance. That question has a different honest answer for different people in different situations. It is not rhetorical. Some people, with some avoidance who are genuinely actively working on the fear, find that the answer changes over time as the consistent ordinary gradually improves. The intermittent extraordinary becomes less intermittent. The managed distance becomes less consistent. The relationship genuinely builds rather than cycling through the same pattern. Other people find that the honest answer is that the consistent ordinary insufficiency is not compatible with their genuine well-being, regardless of how real the intermittent extraordinary is. That the cost of the chronic activation, the pre-qualification of legitimate need, the suspended state of someone who is never quite sure where they stand, these costs are too serious and too cumulative to be adequately compensated for by the genuine depth of what the best moments contain. Neither answer is wrong. Both deserve to be reached through honest assessment, rather than through either the hopeful avoidance of the question or the protective premature certainty of someone who has decided before assessing. What makes the honest assessment possible is the specific, practical, daily life question that the elevated language of psychological understanding can sometimes obscure. Is this relationship, as it actually is right now, meeting enough of what you need to be genuinely okay? Not potentially, not in the best moments, not if the fear is worked through. Right now, as it currently is, in its actual daily texture. If the honest answer is yes, or yes enough, and there is genuine evidence that the avoidant is actively engaging with the work of addressing the fear, then the assessment can support continued investment with clear eyes about what the investment requires and what evidence of genuine change looks like over time. If the honest answer is no, or not sustainably, and the evidence of active genuine work on the fear is absent or insufficient, then the assessment supports the honest acknowledgement that genuine feeling without adequate expression is not the same as adequate relationship. That understanding someone's psychology is not a substitute for being adequately loved by them. That the real, genuine, specifically you feeling they carry does not constitute the daily, consistent, showing up love that you need in order to be genuinely okay. Both outcomes deserve the same quality of honest assessment, without the distortion of hope in one direction or protective cynicism in the other. Simply the clear, self-honest, genuinely for you assessment of your own actual situation. The signs of avoidant fear point to genuine feeling. That is true and that is meaningful, and it deserves to be held clearly rather than dismissed. It is also not the most important thing. The most important thing for the purposes of your actual life and your actual well-being is not the accurate understanding of someone else's genuine feeling. It is the honest, ongoing, self-directed assessment of whether your own genuine needs are being met. Understanding the psychology serves you when it produces clarity. When it changes the story from "you were not worth staying for" to "the fear prevented the adequate expression of genuine feeling," that change matters. It is the accurate one. Understanding the psychology does not serve you when it becomes the substitution of someone else's interior complexity for the simpler, more personal, more directly relevant, honest assessment of your own situation. When the fluency with the avoidance psychology displaces the direct, honest, self-respecting engagement with the question of what you need and whether you are receiving it, both forms of understanding are available. The one about the avoidant and the one about yourself. They are not in competition. The most honest and most useful position holds both with equal seriousness. The avoidance fear is real. Your needs are also real. The genuine feeling underneath the pattern is genuine. The cost of the pattern's behavioral output is also genuine. Everything in this conversation pointed toward clarity. The clarity is not primarily about them. It was always underneath the psychological explanation about you, what you need, what you have. The honest gap between the two, if there is one. And what that gap honestly calls for, that is the question the signs were always pointing toward. Your answer to it is the most important thing in the conversation.